Good evening and welcome to All Four Wins Football. If you'd like to find out why I've got the giggles and I'm struggling to start this show properly, come over on the other side and I'll have a fresh face and tell you all about it. Do you know what? I think I've been there. Just when you think you've seen it all, done the lot, we have genuinely been talking on here for the last 4 minutes or so, introducing everyone as if we were live. And I'm sitting there thinking, why does nobody seem to be talking? Why can't I see how it wasn't live? It was genuinely not on. So that is wow. So apologies for that. We genuinely thought we were live. That's my bad. And well, what can I say? It's not the start. It's a shame that wasn't recorded because it was a really good one. But we'll try our very best to throw ourselves back in. Welcome to All Four Wins Football. This might be my last ever show. I may now be sacked for the inability to start a show correctly. Beth will obviously take over. That's wonderful. But we'll carry on regardless because that's what it's all about. FA Cup has been drawn in the fourth round, and of course we're going to look through WSL. Now would be a good time to say hello to this wonderful group of people that I have assembled before me, a bit like the Avengers. It was indeed the greatest 4 minutes the channel has ever seen, and we will all take that away with us until the very, very end. So Beth, lovely to have you along again. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm very well. How are you?
Yes, I'm not too bad, thank you. You didn't do the last one, remember? Remember what that bit that you said about? You're like, oh, I'm sure they're sick of the sight of me by now.
Everyone's going to be sick of the sight of me, Barry. I'm always here.
Don't worry about it. I've been here for so long, like the whole beard. I'm just not going to shave it. I'm just going to keep on going. Honestly, you're still fresh faced as far as that goes for me. That was the start of the 4 minutes. We'll see how the next bit goes. We've got a new person in as well. 2 new people indeed, Will and Adam. Adam is writing as well for the halfway line, but both of them are writers and podcasters. And he said popcasters there. That would have been fun. That's something very different. But very nice to have you both here. So thanks for joining us, Adam. I believe the question I asked you was, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here.
Thank you. Yes, I'm glad we got that same gag that we did last time. It's good to know. So I'm getting the strangest sense of deja vu. I don't know if you've ever had that when
before.
Yeah. So I'll just carry on where I left off. So yes, Beth very kindly invited me onto the show. Said it was extremely professional, high, production value. Really good. So this is a good start for me. Very proud to be on. Glad to be on. I'm an Arsenal fan for my sins. Arsenal Women's fan. Been going to the game since 2020, but I've been following them on TV a lot longer before then. And then since lockdown, I've sort of committed to not just going to the games, I've got a season ticket, but writing about them, talking about them. And it's kind of snowballed. And what we now 2024, so 4 years later, suddenly I'm on this amazing channel with the three of you. And as you say, I'm now writing for the halfway line. I've been welcomed into the fold, and I cannot overstate how grateful I am for the opportunity. I've got one piece out already and a few more down the line, but I'm looking forward to talking about all the things FA Cup and WSL tonight.
Looking forward to talking with you, and thank you very much. Much appreciated. Good to have you on. Will, it's usually a little bit more professional than this. I can only apologise, but there we are. Such is life. Happens to the best of us. Again, lovely to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you here.
So I'm Will. I'm based in Southeast London. For my sins, I'm a Tottenham Hotspur women fan, which so Adam and I are going to have a little punch up later. I was invited on also by Beth while we were having a chat to Robert Villaham this afternoon. This is my first season properly following the WSL. Absolutely loving it so far. Normally I'm a Derby County fan, so I can never really win when it comes to this kind of thing. Made some poor choices, but yeah, I'm super excited to be here. It's going to be great.
Absolutely, that Sean has got his own back from a comment in the last podcast that we were on. So congratulations, Sean. I will throw that one back at you. That's no problem at all. But yes, I wouldn't if I were you. Professional isn't really what I tend to go for. We've all got enough going on in our lives, haven't we? I didn't know where to start. I've been I'm and ahhing as to whether we're going to go FA Cup or WSL, and I've just this second made the decision, so we're going to go with it. We're going to kick off with the FA Cup because it's only just happened, and let's be honest, there's a lot there to look forward to. So 16 ties the WSL have come marching in. Before we even get to the actual ties that were put out there, what did we think about how it was disseminated to the world? Because again, it takes its time, doesn't it? The draw. If you want to find the earlier round draws, it takes so long for it to be put up and to be visible for people to see what's going on. You're relying on individual clubs more than anything to put out the information as to who they're playing, and obviously you can't cover all of those. But when you start talking about later on the last round, it's on Instagram, obviously. I thought, fair play to them. At least they're trying to put it out there so people can see it and make a bit more of a thing of it. Obviously, did not work quite as well as everyone involved would have wanted that to. But again, the idea I thought was really good. We end up on YouTube this time, and thankfully, all streamed well with no problems whatsoever, with the exception of the fact that it's a bit like the Eurovision Song Contest. We only really care about the songs and the points, but there's a lot of chatter in between there. I reckon I could do the Eurovision Song Contest in an hour, but you have to put aside about 7 just to be able to watch it. And if you make it to the end, fair play. If you made it to the end of this speech as well, by the way, well done. Let's throw it over to you guys. Beth, what did you think? Much more professionally done. Is that just because the WSL teams are in it now, or is that me being a little bit cynical?
First of all, I'd love to see you do the Eurovision Song Contest. That's what I'm thinking about right now. But yeah, look, I think what happened last time was a real shame. So it's good to see that was kind of like, actually, I'm not entirely sure if this was the plan all along or if they adapted based on kind of what went wrong and criticisms. But it's good to see that tonight went pretty smoothly. Even nothing is perfect, but as far as I'm aware, it ran as it was supposed to. Whether or not people loved it, that's a separate matter. But we spoke about it a bit on a previous pod, the whole kind of debacle last time. It being on Instagram in the first place to me just felt silly, and that's nothing to do with the FA Cup itself or who the draw was hosted by. It's not about any of that, but I don't know why anyone ever thought, oh yes, an Instagram live stream, that's what we should do. Because you have endless options, and YouTube to me is such a kind of feasible, not easy in the sense of it's just an easy solution, but it's pretty accessible for everyone. So I don't really know why that wasn't utilized in the first place. And I guess it can feel like a bit of a slap in the face to lower league teams or people who follow lower league teams, or just in general, anyone who cares about football beyond kind of the WSL and even the Championship, that sometimes things do only seem to be dealt with when they're at the very highest level. And that's something that I think has been raised even with the Championship as well. It's not even just the top 2 flights, it's kind of the highest level. And that's not how, more generally, kind of moving away from just the FA Cup, that's not how we grow the game, by only focusing on the top level. So I think from that perspective, I definitely do get it, and I get the frustration. I think we could, in some capacity, probably call tonight a success. But I definitely see and acknowledge the issues overall. And I'm seeing, comments on people watching the draw, finding it maybe not the most exciting or not the most organized. Something I noticed, which is this really random, this me being really picky, just that nobody else, as far as I can see, has pointed out yet, was just, I just felt like you could really hear the audience. I was watching it, I felt like I could almost hear the audience more than the presenters. And I don't know why I'm acting like I'm some sort of professional live show presenter, because I'm far from it. But I did think that was a little bit of a shame. I just thought the people doing the presenting probably deserved a little bit more in that sense. But I don't know. I feel like I'm just being really nitpicky now. But overall, it's good to see positive change. But I hope that that continues and then extends to the earlier stages of the competition in future. And I will now stop rambling.
To be fair, Beth, I don't know why I'm acting like some sort of live show presenter either, but apparently I appear to be giving it a jolly good go. I'm just pleased it's actually a live show that I'm presenting now, not some sort of dress rehearsal. I'm never going to get over that. Genuinely, I'm going to be like Dobby at the end of this. I'm going to go and I'm going to start headbutting the fridge because that has absolutely blown my mind. We don't need to go outside of Stevenage for a fountain, Sean. We have them inside, being a new town that was opened up by Her Majesty the Queen, not Elizabeth Turland. Yeah, there you go. So we could do that inside, but yeah, that'd be quite cool. And Alan, that's harsh, but yeah, what a shootout it was. Yeah, could be. Absolutely. It'd be interesting to see if there are any shootouts in this round that would match the Stevenage against Luton epic. Adam, same sort of question to you, really. Like I say, it was interesting. I hark back. I mean, you lot are far too young and fancy free to remember it. But, you know, the FA Cup draw and all of these draws just used to be like at the end of the show. They didn't have their own thing. And now everywhere, Champions League draws, it's like they're trying to make it a thing. And actually, all anybody really cares about is seeing the balls come out of the. And they just like, oh, look at that one. If you want to talk about it, they talk about it afterwards. Let's watch the draw. And people that want to listen to you chat about it can watch it afterwards. But instead, we are all having to suffer listening to any. And it doesn't matter who it is. We don't care. It's like Christmas. You open the presents, you've got to say thank you to people, but really all that's going through your head is what's next. Because ultimately, that's all you care about, right?
I mean, all that's going through my head is when's the roast turkey and the Christmas pudding coming out? Because that's what I'm on right next. I've got a lot of thoughts about this, and I'll try and ramble this into a compressed amount of time to get everybody else to go. So historically, FA Cup with women's football, it was like this was the. If you're going back in time, we're talking like the 2000s, maybe the 90s. It was the final was the flagship game that it was the only time you got to see a domestic women's football team on the TV. It was like the flagship moment of the season, and then that's great because Arsenal always got to the final, so I always got to see Arsenal play. Currently, now it's one of the worst covered competitions in like when you compare to like the WSL and DAZN in Champions League. It is woefully under coverage, and the draw is part of that. And I agree with Beth, the nonsense of it being on Instagram. I mean, to be fair, if it were me, I'd have it on TV because if you want to watch the men's FA Cup draw, you watch it on TV. Why can't you watch the women's FA Cup? We'll do it at the same time, do it as a back-to-back thing, because come next year, and I'm going with a bit for a draw here, but like the rounds themselves, the fourth round draw, all the men's draws, they'll be on TV. I think there'll probably be one game. I don't know if they're going to do it on a YouTube live thing or anything, but historically, it's been a nightmare to even watch some of these games. I cannot understand why it has to be something fancy like we're going to do on Instagram, we're going to live on YouTube, or we're going to stick it on a TV program that no women's football fan has ever watched, but it's hosting it as a niche thing, or it's live on the radio. And what I really liked this, I want to be positive. I liked the fact that it was like a men's draw. You had your podium, you had your bowl, you had the balls that were in, you had if you blinked and you removed all the women's naming from it, you think, right, this is the FA Cup draw. It's what we're used to watching. If it be, let's say, on the men's side, I think it was, whoever it was, get like Mark Chapman doing it, like at Wembley with like Ian Wright and Kelly Smith. It was like a men's draw, and that's what the draw should be. It wasn't when it was like a halftime break. I think this is what you're sort of alluding to when they decided to, talk about the results when all the results are out. I want to see who Manchester United are going to get. And I'd also with the audience, it did feel like the audience were more interested talking with themselves rather than talking about the draw. There was a lot of cringy, like, can we get a cheer for Stevenage? And there's like silence in the room. There was that sort of stuff. And I just didn't really, like, can we get a shout for Fulham? No, nothing. But I think it's a step in the right direction. I think it can get better. I think this is the right way forward. I would like to see this put onto the normal television, BBC One, ITV. I'd like to see the competition give a proper television coverage like the WSL. This is why I mean it's woefully undercoveraged. But it's a positive step forward. And as D-Ream said, things can only get better.
Absolutely that. And I mean, Will, this is kind of it really, isn't it? Is that we're going to use that awful word now that seems to get used in reality TV shows far too often, but it is a journey. You know, it's not a case of that you wake up one morning and all of a sudden, oh, women's football, look at that, it's all equal and lovely and beautiful, and we've got hundreds of thousands of people wanting to watch it week in, week out. And I say that with love, because you think about what Adam was saying there. Of course, it'd be lovely to have it on the TV. It's been on the TV before, on the One Show, if we all remember, where you'd sit there, you'd have to, one show starts at 7, and like you said, there's like a little half-time bit, so you've got to wait. You're watching some news article about a pigeon that's just rescued a sparrow. You know, that's the usual sort of thing you get. You're like, why am I watching this? Oh, that's right, because I want to see the FA Cup draw. Is there a space now for this to start? Michael, stop it, you're killing me. Is this the time now for us to start showing a game? Is there not a possibility somewhere, whether it be through a YouTube stream or something like that, of the earlier rounds, where then maybe the draw could go on to something like that, or maybe the BBC, could they not step up and go, do you know what, it's only one game around, it's not that many of them, you know, there's been a first qualifying, a second qualifying, a third qualifying, 1, 2, so there's 6 rounds. I'm sure they could sort themselves out somehow to go and cover a game somewhere across the pyramid and then do the draw immediately after that, and give it a little bit of hype, because I mean, there's been plenty of men's football matches on for the FA Cup. I've not watched a single one of them. So not a possibility.
I mean, I absolutely agree with you. There has to be a time period that they can fit this. It's 90 minutes. We get so many mediocre low end men's matches. No one's really going to watch them, even if they went out on iPlayer or something like that. There's all the iPlayer streams. You can watch like the Northern Irish League. You can watch pretty much all of those games on iPlayer. Yet it's bordering on impossible to see anything below the championship or the women's championship, and none of these games, that would just be such a massive financial boost. Even if it doesn't even have to be that much money, but that little bit that would go towards the lower end teams, that the only way you can actually find out what really happened is either go there, make that massive trip to go there, or look at the Adobe Women's FA Cup website and scroll through quite a lot of quite dull reams of facts and figures that don't really tell you anything about what happened. You don't get any of the stories, you don't get any of the players, all these kind of young and up and coming players that could be there. I do think it is that strange afterthought where that women's football seems to sit in. And Beth and I were talking about it earlier about the BBC Women's Football Show. Why is it on a Sunday night after Match of the Day 2 at 11:30? When you think about the demographic that they're going for, that they clearly were going for with the Instagram live stream version of the draw, they're clearly kind of going for a certain demographic. Why would you put it on when it's too late for the majority of people to watch it? It's only 45 minutes. Put it before Match of the Day 2, because the people who are going to stay up for Match of the Day 2, they're going to be there. They're going to watch it. So kind of take advantage of that space being there, rather than putting it back to where people are like, well, it's a bit late now, I'm just gonna have to go to bed. I've got work in the morning. My kids have got school in the morning. All these opportunities that they seem like open goals, and no one's really taken them.
They did that, open goals. Yeah, very good. Nicely done. You should be a writer. That's superb. Listen, I think you're all absolutely spot on when it comes to that, and it's frustrating for me because I do get it. I get there's got to be, a way to do it. But even if you said from the first round onwards, we're going to start showing it just a bit like they do with the men. I can understand the problems you might have of traveling to a tier 6, 7, 8, sort of club. Of course, that's going to be a drama in the early part, and you're not going to want to set up all the bits. But think of what you do for the game. Even just by showing them a little bit, you ain't got to give them loads of money. It's not like the men. And actually, what they could then do is, if it's a club that is a league club on the men's side, there's a chance they might even get the opportunity to go and play in the proper stadium and play it there, because then they don't have to worry about, where we're going to put the camera. So, I think there is definitely a lot that could be done with regards to getting that sorted, and hopefully, fingers crossed, they will. But I agree with Adam, absolutely a step in the right direction. And and hopefully we just get it a bit more, even again with the website. Like, it was so easy to find the FA Cup draw on the FA Cup website this time. And like I say, we're less than an hour in it, but you want to try finding that for, the third qualifying round. No, you're all just searching through Twitter. So work to be done, but yes, a good start. So the draw itself, very interesting one. The London Bees Rugby Borough, that kicks off, and that is Rugby Borough beat Mancunian Unity in their match, but London Bees, tune into lower league lingo, because on Wednesday I'm 100% going through that game, so don't look at it, it'll be a surprise for you. But I'm telling you now, that is just unbelievable, Jeff. But other games, Leicester will play Stoke, West Ham, Liverpool. Arsenal have got Bristol City in a WSL rematch from last season. Chelsea have got Charlton, Exeter Sunderland, Cheltenham against Wolves, Brighton against Durham, which, to be honest, Sean, is who I thought Manchester United were going to get. Newcastle will play Forest or Burnley. Kidderminster or Blackburn will play Portsmouth. Both of those games with the Oars are taking place this week. Man City will play Ipswich or AFC Bournemouth. Villa play Oxford or Bristol. Everton play Spurs. Manchester United play West Brom. Crystal Palace play Sheffield United. And Fulham have a London derby as the lowest placed southern side in the leagues against London City Lionesses, which will be very interesting, seeing how they get on. I would not be surprised if that ends up at Craven Cottage. We're going to go, we'll start with Beth so that you two have got a chance to think it through with what you were going to go with. We'll stick her under the bus and then we'll throw you guys around. We'll probably come to you, Will, next, just so you got time to prepare for this. But Beth, give me one of the games there or two that has really stood out for you there. What do you think is one of the standout ties for you there?
Yeah, well, I mean, you already touched on London Bees and them against Rugby Borough. I'm just really kind of enthralled by London Bees. I think it's really exciting. They're just flying at the moment, and I'm not as well across that tier as you are, but having listened to their manager speak on the radio a couple of weeks ago, just honestly sounds like they have a really great thing going, and I hope that they can kind of get the job done in the cup. But apart from that, I obviously Spurs drawing Everton. I think it was Jamie from the halfway line who pointed out that while Spurs obviously beat Everton in the league yesterday, their track record away is a very different thing altogether. So that might not be as good of a draw for Spurs as some people might think after yesterday's result. But apart from that, really looking forward to Fulham London City as well. Sorry, I've just given you three. Didn't ask for three, but I'm going to give you three. Just because, London derby, would love to see that at Craven Cottage, would love to go to that one. And just think that could be an interesting game. And Fulham's another one who their game with Brentford was tight. So just for kind of keeping tabs on their journey has been really exciting and really interesting. So it's nice to see them drawn against a championship side, see how they are, see how they're put to the test.
Absolutely, could not agree more. And three big ties there. And it's again, like the Fulham one, I was so pulling for them, because you just want in that sort of situation for them to get a game that you either want them to get one that's like insanely easy so they get another opportunity, or you want them to get one that is, absolutely bang on and a potential money spinner. Although, Adam, I do believe you've got a little bit of a fact about Fulham that might blow a few people's minds. So yourself and then let us know what you thought.
Yes, I got a few facts. I'll save the fact for later, but it did actually feed into the ties of interest, because I'd said I'm a bit of a history buff. So the tie that caught my eye was Chelsea versus Charlton Athletic. That was an interesting one for me, because Charlton won the FA Cup in 2005. They're a bit of a fallen giant, and Chelsea they print trophies like money. It's ridiculous. They're like a conveyor belt of success. So you're sort of seeing a fallen giant against a current one. So I'm really excited about that one. Got to say Arsenal. It's obviously it's my team, but also against Bristol City, who in a former life were Bristol Academy, and we had 2 cup finals against them in 2011 and 2013. So a replay of those finals, we won both of those, so hopefully we can win another one. The Fulham one, I can drop the clanger now if you want. They won the FA Cup twice. In I believe it was 2002 and 2003. They actually were one of the first teams in the country to go professional, and they did it for a few years, and so they attracted all the big talent in because they were paying them proper wages and so forth, and then it all fell apart because the league isn't what it was now. There was no money. It was also professional. It collapsed and everybody else left, but they got 2 FA Cups from that team, and it's good to see Fulham back, and I think there'll be a good game against the London City Lionesses, because they're a bit like the Fulham there. Their money's going into that team, and they're bringing in really good talent at a lower level. I think that's going to be a good time.
I couldn't agree with you more, and it's a big one for them. Fulham had a tough one. They're up against Brentford, which was interesting because we had one of their players on our channel. They were one of our first player interviews, actually, that we had here on the channel, and it was very, very interesting. I haven't seen it. Go back all the way to the beginning. It's not that far. It was only the beginning of the year. I'm nearly a year old. Oh my God, this is how people that have children feel. Right, Will, whilst I'm just sitting there understanding that little moment, I know I was going to come to you next, but Adam's little fact got thrown in and continuity. So, yes, what do you reckon? Any of those sticking out for you there? And how do you feel about Beth's point there about Spurs and Everton?
I absolutely agree with Beth's point about Spurs and Everton. They do not have a good record. Well, I was slightly surprised they got Everton. I was expecting it to be Palace, to be honest. I thought we were going to get the fourth Palace game. But what I'm hoping is that the Everton game takes place at Goodison, so I can actually finally get my trip there. I've sort of been waiting for that. I wouldn't be surprised if we really struggle there. The game on Sunday was really nice to get the win. We'll probably talk about that later, but it wasn't necessarily as easy as it could have been, I think, or should have been maybe. I think it will be a good one. Another one that kind of piqued my interest slightly was Brighton versus Durham, which is another WSL versus Championship clash. I really do think that's a long way to go for the Brighton side. It's a big away day, and I think the Durham could possibly come away with something there, though Brighton are looking very, very strong at the moment. So yeah, I think it is an interesting. There's a few interesting ones that pop out. West Ham versus Liverpool could obviously be quite a good one, and one of the few WSL clashes that we've got going on there. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, it might well have been. But yes, that was one of the strangest moments I've ever seen in my life, when there was a Michael Jackson statue outside of Fulham's. Like, wow. Imagine being a Fulham player. Oh, yes, and, here's Michael Jackson. Who knows? But there we go. Yes, well, I completely agree. Has anyone got anything else they'd like to add on the FA Cup before we park that? That's a no. Okay, we've had their chance. So there we go. If you've got anything you want to put about it in the comments, do feel free. But we'll still pop them up. That's not a problem at all. But instead, we must now take our leave of the FA Cup and move to the WSL, because, again, quite a weekend. There was, to be fair, Beth, some pretty interesting results that came from the weekend. Excuse me, a bit of a frog in my throat there. But I'm very intrigued as to which ones you think were the biggest. So a quick run through. We had United, that's Manchester United, 4, Liverpool 0, Man City 4, Leicester 0, Spurs 2, Everton 1. Congratulations, Will. Arsenal 4, Aston Villa 0. Well done, Adam. Chelsea 4, Brighton 2, which was an interesting one, and West Ham 5, Crystal Palace 2. So some very interesting ones there. Beth, again, which of those sort of really hit you right between the eyes? The first thing that hits me about them all, for me, was Bunny Shaw and how quickly she scored for Man City. There is a little bit about them that feels inevitable. We will get into some of these games a bit more in depth, but yeah, just on first knock-ins, what ones stood out for you of the weekend?
I think the one that surprised me the most was probably West Ham Palace. Going into it, I was quite confident in Palace. And yeah, as Sean says, West Ham scoring 5 feels illegal, especially when Palace went 2-0 up so quickly, kind of keeping an eye on the score and then returning to it later and being like, what? So that is probably one that stood out to me the most. And having kind of looked back on not the whole game, but highlights and some clips today, it's a real shame for Palace because by all means, like not in any sense saying that West Ham didn't deserve that win. But when you look at some of the moments that Palace had, like going 2-0 up inside of 11 minutes, the assist for the first goal from Blanchard, I thought was fantastic. She's just a brilliant, brilliant player. And when India Page Riley scored, you just like just seeing what it meant to her was like, it was just seemed like such a huge moment. And these players have so much passion. I really think Laura Kaminsky is a very competent manager, and they should have scored again. Blanchard did kind of send a sitter over the crossbar much later, which was a real shame because that would have completely changed the game for them. But yeah, Asai kind of put West Ham back in it, and then they grew into the game after having a pretty poor start, and then the floodgates just opened. Denton's run and goal was brilliant, but should have been stopped. Palace just like defensively, especially, did kind of fall apart. And if they're going to stay in the WSL, that's what they've got to work on for me. I think is not letting heads drop and not letting that sort of just complete opening up of the defense happen. They did have more possession. It was almost 60-40, I think, Palace with more possession, but West Ham just somehow managed to run away with it, which I didn't at all expect, but credit to them. That's an important 3 points for West Ham in this kind of what could be a potential relegation scrap. And have to give a mention to Katrina Gorry as well. I think she was maybe slightly quieter in the first half, but second half looked from what I've seen like she was really strong and does seem to be thriving in the captain's role as well at West Ham, which I had no doubt that she would. But yeah, having been keeping an eye on them, she is a real force behind West Ham just fighting to not be in a relegation scrap, or if they're going to be in one, fighting to make it out of the correct side, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Absolutely. We'll come to you this time, so you don't feel like you're last all the time. But anyone there that particularly screamed out at you as being quite an interesting result?
Ooh, of the result, yeah, I think it's got to be the Chelsea Brighton match for me. Just the amount of the strange amount of mistakes that it seemed to have, not sort of on both sides. I thought Hannah Hampton had a really kind of strong game, but the two of the goals that the first 2 goals that Brighton conceded, they just made it just that bit too easy. It was almost quite a difficult watch at some points, especially the Aggie Beaver-Jones goal that she managed to score. We know how strong Chelsea are, and I mean, seeing them absolutely batter Tottenham was quite an unpleasant watch a couple of weeks back. But I feel like if you're going to go up against these sides like Chelsea, those kind of mistakes are really they just have to be. You can't make them.
For sure, that's very good. Adam, for you, anything that really stood out?
I mean, obviously, I want to talk about the Arsenal game, but I do agree with Will. When I was going through the highlights, the Chelsea Brighton game stood out. I was making a note for the goal, and I think every goal was like defensive error, defensive error, defensive error. It's like, this is ridiculous. I'm watching this game. It's like, you can't do this. Like, I appreciate Brighton's desire to be attacking and swashbuckling, and it's great, but you do have to defend. And it's like this season was like, we're not going to bother defending. I mean, I was at the Emirates when they came to us, and people were talking about Brighton. Oh, they're really good. They beat Everton 4-0. They're really attacking, really exciting, and we just played through them. It was ridiculous. It was just the way, which like, this is just too easy. It was like playing around mannequins. They just didn't bother defending. So I'm not surprised that Chelsea put 4 goals past Brighton. That being said, as much as we can criticise Brighton's defending, which was just awful. I mean, the Aggie Beaver Jones goals, I think, is the worst, but there were many others. Chelsea made the same mistakes. That it finished 4-2, but it could have finished 4-4. Brighton actually had really good chances where their high press got the turnover to a Chelsea defence, and it's a block on the line. Hampton making a really good save. Absolutely, yeah, ridiculous. It was a stupid game that should have finished as a 4-4 draw. As it is, it's 9 wins in a row for Chelsea, which matches Arsenal's start to the season 2019 when they won the league. So they've batched the best WSL start to the season, which is just ridiculous now. Although the next best up is, I think, in 2008-9 when Arsenal won their first 16 matches. So that's the next record for Sonia Bombasta to hit. Yeah, ridiculous. Another win for Chelsea. Another, dot crossed IT, whatever it is, a win on the thing, and they're looking unstoppable. They do stupid bad things and they still win, and you have to hold your hands up. It just isn't fair. Like any other team who would do the things that Chelsea did in that game would draw the game, would lose the game, and they've won 4-2. At that point, you just think, what's the point?
No, for sure. Absolutely. Do you know what? Normally, when we go through these games, we sort of run through them one at a time. But I want to do it slightly differently, because we always talk about the fact that Chelsea, City, Arsenal, United, some of these clubs are going to be around the top 4, and that's always where we lead it with. But actually, I think there's potentially a little bit more injury going on right down the bottom at the moment. We've got Crystal Palace on 12 points with 5. No, I'll try that again. In 12th place with 5 points, if they had 12 points, they'd be absolutely delighted. I'm definitely getting taken out the back and shot. If I was a horse in the Grand National, I would have a green fence around me right now. We'll try again. Crystal Palace are 12th with 5 points, with Leicester in 11th, also with 5. Everton and Aston Villa 10th and 9th with 6. East Ham. I'm trying to say now. This was not going well. This was an audition. West Ham 8th with 8, and Liverpool 7th with 9. There's only 4 points between the entire bottom half of the table, which is just unfathomable, really, quite how close that is. In contrast, the 4 points that we're talking about there is what separates second from third and fourth as well. So that's the ridiculousness of the conversation. So I'm going to kind of come around to you with different bits, and I'd like to start with you on this one, Will, because Beth's already spoken about this match. But the Crystal Palace game against West Ham was huge for this very reason. West Ham were on the same amount of points as Crystal Palace as the game started. And obviously, by the end of it, they pulled themselves 3 points away from that dreaded drop zone. That game was quite a big one. Palace haven't got it any easier because they've got Manchester United in the last game before the Christmas break. What did you make of the Palace game against West Ham? And what do you make of Crystal Palace's chances of staying up this season? Because ordinarily you'd look at that and go, not so great. But the fact there's so many of them, I mean, it really is only 1 from 6. And even Spurs are not in time. They're not going to end up in the relegation zone. Don't write into me. They're only 5 points. Then there's a bit of a gap. So, I can't even believe I've said that. I feel a little bit bad now. But there you go. It's just a fact. They're on 10 points. So, yeah, what did you make of the whole Palace-West Ham situation?
I was really impressed with how they started the game. Getting 2 goals that quickly, especially given how they have struggled. Not necessarily struggled, but it's been a difficult start. They are the team that's just come up. Getting that 2 points earlier, 2 goals early on, especially against what is essentially their main rivals for relegation were at that point. I think that was massive. And then it seemed as soon as they conceded that first goal, their head seemed to drop. And it's something I've noticed in a few of the games that they've played, quite a few of the games they've played. It happened against us in the first match of the season, happened against Chelsea. It's happened again, where as soon as that first one goes, they all just seem to tumble. 5 goals almost, as someone said, it should be illegal. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like they should be conceding that many goals. Their defense almost looked like there were a few shots that went in where they just wouldn't close down any sort of attacking move. They stood back, they stepped off the ball. I think if you're going to be competitive in this league, like I think they can be, you've got to kind of step up and be aggressive, especially defensively. You could maybe get away with that in the Championship, but here teams are just going to take more experienced teams are just going to take advantage of you in those kind of situations.
No, I think you're right, and we can move alongside that a little bit there with Beth. If we talk a little bit about Leicester, because as we say, they're on the same number of points. They had a tough game, 4-0 against Manchester City. We mentioned how the inevitable Bunny Shaw scored literally within the first 2 minutes. A couple of the goals, Jessica Park and Mary Fowler as well. For Leicester, bit of a nightmare. They'd be hoping that with Palace playing Manchester United at the weekend, they would have the opportunity to pull away a little bit further. But just to cheer Leicester up just that little bit more, they do have a home game, but they're going to be welcoming Chelsea, which, guaranteed 3 points, surely. I'm not saying for which side, though. Beth, what do you reckon there about Leicester? Can you see them remaining in this scrap all the way through the season?
I can, yeah, because they just, maybe depending if much happens during the January transfer window, that's obviously a real chance for clubs to kind of pull themselves up a little bit, but they do just seem to really struggle with that high caliber of strikers, which obviously Manchester City has, Chelsea has, so I hope that they will have taken some learnings away from that City game, because it's a different opposition, of course, but there's some of those same challenges. So yeah, I do have some worries for Leicester, and I wouldn't guarantee that they're going to stay in this scrap all the way till the end, but I think it's going to be difficult for them to get out of it. It's going to require a lot of work, and also maybe some relying on other results going their way. So yeah, it's not looking particularly promising. But I do think in general, though, this weekend was just a bit of a funny one. Lots of high scoring games. Obviously, we had the Storm. I think a lot struggled with that. And especially when you've got a game like City, it's hard enough to find your feet against them. And the second you've got a squad with that quality, being able to capitalize on even the tiniest thing going their way, they're going to capitalize on it. And I think City had some really good performances, but Leicester they don't seem to quite have it together yet. And you would hope, I know we're still not super late in the season, but we are really getting into the thick of it now. So you would hope they would have found their feet a little bit more at this stage. I think if I was a Leicester fan now, I'd be starting to worry. I probably wouldn't have said that over the last few weeks. And I know it's City. Losing 4-0 to City is not unheard of by any means. But yeah, it's probably getting to the point in the season now where it's starting to get a bit more concerning, and you do want to see some changes.
I mean, for sure, the games against each other for this bottom six are 100% going to be pivotal. But Adam, when you look at these games, I mean, obviously working our way up the league, so you've got Everton, and Everton, obviously, as you know, travelled to Tottenham Hotspur and lost 2-1 with Beth England getting a couple, but an absolute scorcher by all accounts from Holmesgard as well, which is quite a thing. What I find interesting about Everton was, and I just had to have a look to have a check, but in the WSL at the moment, there's been 9 games played, and the top 20 goal scorers in the WSL have got 2 goals or more. And I say the top 20, there's more than 20 because 20th space is shared out by a ridiculous number of people. And the reason why I found it interesting is because when you go looking through it, there's a Palace player, there's, I think, a Leicester player, there's not an Everton player. And when you start looking at those sorts of problems, actually, there isn't a Leicester one. So when you start looking at them, this is going to be part of the issue, isn't it? We know that Crystal Palace have potentially got goals within them, but Everton and Leicester struggling a little bit more with them. What did you make, first of all, of Everton's performance against Spurs, and also the fact that they're down in the scrap in the first place. Can you see a way out for them, or do you foresee it being quite a long rest of the season for them?
I mean, to quote Michael Owen, I think it was Michael Owen who said, when they don't score goals, they don't often win games. I think that's what he said. And, you know, football IQ 100 there. Everton have always been like this. They are very stubborn, tricky. I mean, we know this. They came to Emirates, they got a 0-0 draw. It's one of the many reasons why we have a different manager now. But they are a tough nut to crack, but they just don't really have that threat at the other end of the pitch. And I think that comes to, I think, the injuries are known about. I mean, let's be fair, we know about the injuries they've got, but they have got international forwards. They've got Katjas Noyce, who, you know, scores for the Netherlands. For whatever reason, I think they are a well-coached team, but they just have no attacking impetus whatsoever. But out of the teams that lost the weekend, you know, Villa, Arsenal battered them, Leicester, Man City battered them, Spurs, very, very close, a very marginal gain. Could have easily been a 1-1, but obviously Spurs got a penalty. Was it? I didn't quite catch on the highlights what the cause was. I don't know if it was a shirt tug in the end.
I was in the stadium. I couldn't work it out.
All right.
Yeah, it was a very soft penalty, that one. Very soft penalty. Yeah, but no, I totally agree. I think, Everton have been really unlucky with injuries. Same for Leicester, though. Yeah, that really is proving the downfall of some clubs, I think. But sorry, I'll let you continue.
I would back, out of all of them in that group, because I backed at West Ham to go down this season. I think they're overdue. I think I don't have much time for them because they don't properly support their women's team. But they're on 8 points and they seem to be on the way up. So what do I know? But out of the ones there, I would back Everton to stay up, because I think whilst they may not be strong at the top end of the pitch, they're tough enough at the back that they're not going to. I don't see them going and getting hammered like Leicester City, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace did. I think they've got the resilience in them to grind out enough draws at least, enough clean sheets that they could probably cling on to the league. But as I've seen with other teams that eventually get relegated, you can only hold off the inevitable forever. At some point, it has to. You can't go into relegation dogfights every season and survive it through, you know, hard work and teamwork and grit and determination. You have to offer something. Everton would be the one I would back to stay up. Certainly, I think they've got the fight, and I think we'll know that it was, it's a 2-1 game. They scored a brilliant goal. I mean, it's probably one of the goals of the weekend, and that was an absolute scorcher. They gave Spurs a tough game. Was it right? Did he make a substitution in the 37th minute? So Brian Sorensen, he actually shuffled his pack in the first half.
It was quite an early game.
Yeah, which I thought was a bit interesting one. I mean, I always think that's a sign that the manager's basically admitting he got that wrong, and I think it shows a lot of courage to admit that. And the proof's in the pudding. A few minutes later, they got an equaliser, so it obviously worked. So I think he's a bit unlucky, Brian. I think if he had a decent squad that was fully fit and like a proper crack at it, rather than having to firefight constantly, Everton might be further up the table. But at the same time, we do say this every season. At some point, there has to be a point where he's got to go one way or the other.
To be fair, not just one, he made two substitutions in the 37th minute. So he really wasn't very happy. But like you say, immediate payback. Some could argue if the penalty wasn't given, may have walked away with a precious point. But as we can say, as we said about Palace and Leicester, they both had easy games with Manchester United and Chelsea, and Everton have got it just as easy because they're hosting Manchester City. So if there was any hope of these three not being only around the bottom when Christmas Day comes around, at the moment it looks like it's going to be coal in their stocking, and I don't mean Palmer. Number 9 is Aston Villa. So we'll throw this one background to you. So this is obviously talking about Villa against the mighty Arsenal. It wasn't the greatest of results for them, a 4-0 thumping really for Villa. But Villa, interestingly enough, and it will move on to the West Ham part that would be the next part of the conversation, they play each other in this next game. And so with West Ham having just beaten Crystal Palace, this is really a brilliant opportunity for West Ham to really put some breathing space between themselves and those teams below, which would be very, very welcome. So what did you make of Villa? Because Sean had mentioned just a little bit earlier on that it's time we have a serious discussion about Villa going down, showing no signs of positivity at all. As we know, Carla Ward left the club. It hasn't been the greatest of times to be a Villa fan. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, I was really quite disappointed with Aston Villa's performance against Arsenal. I thought going into the game, I didn't think they were going to come away with a win, possibly not really even a draw. But when I saw them play against Spurs at Villa Park a couple of months ago, I thought there was something there. It felt like there was some sort of kind of driving force behind them. And I was just really disappointed with how little they even really looked in that game. They looked like there was infighting. It was quite a difficult watch, I think, as a neutral. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I think Robert Powell, I don't think he's quite cracked the code yet. There's, like I said, there's positive signs throughout, but the defense looked non-existent half the time. And they just, yeah, I think that's the key word. Their impetus. There just doesn't seem any under Robert's back. And I like him. I like what the kind of the things that he's trying to work with. I just don't think it's worked for him so far this season.
I think it would be incredibly hard to disagree with you. But again, very interesting. Rachel Daly is up there with the scorers. You know, when you turn around and talk about the people that aren't Bunny Shaw, obviously you've got Wrighton with 6, Brighton doing quite well with 5 there with CK and Russo. But then when you get to 4, you're looking at the likes of Rachel Daly, having her name up there with the likes of JRK from Chelsea, Marlon, Beth England, Beaver Jones, Turland. So it doesn't feel like a position where Aston Villa should be. But yet here they are. Just out of interest, do you reckon he's going to win that, West Ham or Villa?
I'm going on run of form. I think West Ham might have the momentum on this one. I think they could. I think they might have it. But you know, I could say, like you say, Rachel Daly. She almost feels too good for that side. She is a shining light for them. You just hope that they can follow along with that example, especially in defence. It's just you need something. You need strong foundations to build on, and at the moment it feels like her goal scoring is built on sand.
And never forget, she was shoved into left back for her country. What a thing to do. Adam, who do you reckon would win out of West Ham and Villa?
I echo Will's sentiments of West Ham. I was actually at this. Well, myself and Beth, we were both at this game to watch the Arsenal Villa game, and yeah, I was surprised how ordinary they were. The Aston Villa team, considering I've got the lineup here. You got Hansen, Kirsty Hansen, you got Ebony Salmon, Rachel Daly, Staniforth, Jordan Nobbs, Sabrina D'Angelo's international players. There's quality players in there, and we know because we've given them 4 of our players. There's a lot of Arsenal offcuts in there, and that's not to disparage them, just that they've since departed and gone there. I said that I reckon Everton will be the one that would stay up. I wouldn't be surprised if Villa was the one that went back down. If things stay as they are with the same manager and the same group, because they just didn't do anything. They had no shots on target in the entire game. DVD didn't have to make a single save. That's just unacceptable. I can understand we're playing well and etc. And I think there's a few moments in the second half when you maybe thought there might be an option, but no. And you're talking about Rachel Daly. She won the Golden Boot. I think 2 seasons ago, she was the top scorer in the WSL. They were on the cusp of Europe under Carla Ward, and I was backing in the next season. They're going to go one more, and what happened? They just flumped right back down the table again. Very, very, very disappointed with Aston Villa. I was surprised because I saw bits of them against Chelsea on the opening day, and Sabrina D'Angelo almost got an equaliser at Kingsmeadow, and what a story that would have been. But it's been a poor season from them. I would say if West Ham beat Villa, West Ham United will stay up again. I will say if that is because they'll hit double figures, and I think with the rest of the season ahead of them, pick up a few more points. I think 15 points kept them up, West Ham, last season, and I think it's 8 at the moment, is it? So they're only going a few more, and then they'll be down to the rest of them. Very, very disappointed with Aston Villa, and I expect a lot more of them. So
it's interesting. I mean, Beth, feel free to let us know who you think will win out of West Ham and Villa as well. But Adam talks about, doing really well and pushing on with Carla Ward and then slumping back down again. We can move over to Liverpool, who've had exactly the same sort of situation, finishing fourth above Manchester United last season, and was really looking like a great finish. Wanted to push on a little bit, haven't done that. They've dropped to seventh at the moment, 9 points. They're now 9 points away from United and Arsenal. First of all, what did you think about the game against Man United? They lost 4-0, 2 goals in quick succession for Manchester United in the first half, and then they just added to the torment, really. But Liverpool, I mean, again, surely for them too good to go down this season, you would think.
Yeah, you would. I mean, just on kind of Villa first off, I think we talk about like Leicester and Everton being in a relegation battle, but Villa could well find themselves, as Sean said, they're soon as well. I'm not saying they're going to be relegated, but they're looking like they're going to be at that bottom end of the table right now, and they're just massively underperforming. And I do think that after that season where they really performed well under Carla Ward and then had a not so good season, I think that it's a similar thing to what's happened with Liverpool, right? Everyone's gone, oh, they had a really good season, they're going to be great. And then it just kind of, the trajectory doesn't continue upwards. And that happens. But they just, I think, aren't good enough defensively. Robert Powell kind of said in his post-match press conference, like, oh, Rachel Daly's dropping too deep. But I don't know if she's being given a choice with where she's being played and the way they're playing. I think there's a lot of mismanagement going on, in my opinion. And in that sense, I do agree that he, as a manager, could be in trouble. Because when you look at their squad, they should not be performing as badly as they have been. And I think, yeah, it just is definitely underperforming. But with Liverpool, United played really like direct football, really attacking football. And they always seem to find a way to be a main talking point of the weekend, no matter who they're playing or what they're doing. They find a way to be front and center. But it's pretty poor from Liverpool in some moments. Like the fourth goal it almost just felt like cruel, because Marvin Mallard is just completely unmarked at the back post, and you just can't be doing that. Dominique Janssen had a great game, her first WSL goal, but what stuck out for me even more than the goal was that long ball that she sent through to Galton for the second goal. I think that was brilliant. So I think credit to United. Like Liverpool do, again, like they have some strengths, but it just not quite good enough. They couldn't compete with United. They struggled in the same way that Villa struggled to compete with Arsenal. And yeah, just Liverpool, I think, latched on to Olivia Smith as being kind of like this beacon of hope. And she's a great player, but you can't, off the back of the season they had, I just don't know if everyone is, or everyone should be, progressing. So I don't know if you can kind of assume that you're just going to continue on an upwards trajectory without really putting things in place to do it. And I'm not saying that is just transfers. There's obviously so much more to it. But yeah, Liverpool haven't been where they want to be at all so far this season. So I wonder, maybe they'll make some moves over the winter break, over the transfer window. But yeah, that's another disappointing one for them. And I think you can see heads starting to drop a little bit now. So that's something that they want to work on. And just going back to kind of the conversation about relegation, Villa, I think it's almost, as Sean kind of pointed out, really not enough focus is, in my opinion, being put on Villa's underperforming when you consider the injuries that Everton have had and the kind of bad luck that they've had, when you consider the fact that Leicester basically don't have a striker right now. I was in Brian Torrence's press conference pre-match on Friday morning, and they are having a really bad run of injuries, whereas Villa, you look at their list, and why are you losing 4-0 and having such a, it's not just the losing the 4-0, it's the performance just looking so unconvincing for me. Yeah, sorry, that's my ramble on a few different things.
And again, for Liverpool, they've got it easy. They get to play Arsenal at home at the weekend. So not looking great for all of these clubs in the bottom half. West Ham and Villa definitely having the best opportunity to pull away, barring any upsets. We're going to ask you about Spurs, because it feels like the right thing to do, and it also gives you that right reply. You are in that horrible mid-table quandary, I think, at the moment. That position where you could just as equally go up and be sort of fighting against the Brightons, the Cities, the Arsenals, the Uniteds. But again, as we mentioned, if it doesn't quite work out that way, you could end up dropping yourself back down towards the others. Of course, to be fair, you could also just remain as you are and sit in the middle in one of the most bang average seasons ever. All three of those things could occur because that's football for you. Where do you think that's going to go, and how did you feel about that win against Everton, especially after the changes that Adam mentioned earlier on?
I'll be honest, I feel like it's going to be the latter of those three options. It's going to be a bang average season. We're sort of sitting in that strange dividing line where if you look at the table, you have the top five. I'm not going to say the big five, but you've got the top five that kind of stops at Brighton. And then there's a 6-point gap between Brighton and Spurs. I think we're going to really find out on Saturday where Tottenham really sit before we go into the winter break. I was really happy with the 2-1 win. It ran the risk of being slightly Spursy towards the end. It could have been. It was touch and go for a few moments, and there were a few passes where Eleanor Heaps in goal for only her second start for Spurs. I thought she played really well. No one was going to stop that home guard strike. It was unbelievable. It sort of silenced Brisbane Road when it went in. But there were a few passes kind of across the face of goal when you're trying to play out from the back, trying to play, as Robert Willingham keeps talking about, trying to play the Tottenham way, that sometimes it felt like we kind of lack the overall quality to be able to break into. There's sparks of genius, there's sparks of fantastic play, but there's that overall element that is kind of holding us back from making it a top six. Kind of alongside your Brightons, your Arsenals, your Man Uniteds, then you're never going to kind of be able to touch Chelsea, City. Not at this point. I think having watched both those games, they were both quite difficult watches, especially the City game. Well, Chelsea, we gave it something, but City, it was just 90 dire minutes, and that's the two sides that we can have. It's fine with sparks of brilliance, especially through players like Beth England. Evelina Sumanen's goal in the League Cup against Aston Villa was, I think Willingham said it was one of the most beautiful goals he'd ever seen. I don't know about that, but it was a really good goal. And then you end up conceding twice in the first 5 minutes or whatever it was against City. I think the season can be described as Spursy at this point.
No, fair enough. And Beth, we're going to come to you for the Brighton conversation, because it's interesting. Sean has said, delighted Brighton have been mentioned with the top teams in this league. And you are, absolutely. But the reason why and to be fair, I've got to say fair play to all of these teams, and indeed the people that sort out the fixtures, because it is made for a hell of a conversation today. Because Brighton, as Will has just mentioned, are indeed 6 points clear of Spurs. That is the next game again at the weekend. It is going to be Brighton and Spurs at Brighton on Saturday. So big game again. That's one of those that if Brighton win it, then they truly are in a battle potentially for third as it stands. They could very well be trying to have a battle for the top three, well, not top three, for third or fourth or remaining in fifth. Any place, but those are the ones that it looks like. But what's really interesting about that is that you wouldn't have thought that after selling one of the top goal scorers in the league last season, to Manchester United. So first of all, kind of your thoughts on the fact they ran Chelsea close. You know, United ran them close last week as well. So Chelsea not having it all their own way. But this is a big one. So do you see Spurs moving more up towards the top? Do you see Brighton dropping down? How do you see that one falling? Because Brighton could be 9 points clear of Spurs. And indeed, probably 9 points clear of just about any side in the bottom half. Equally, Spurs could pull themselves to 3 points behind Brighton, and all of a sudden, that push for third could well be a fight for fifth and sixth.
Yeah, honestly, I think Brighton really did don't know if challenge is too strong a word, but had a good go against Chelsea. Chelsea ultimately, I think, were just more clinical, as you would expect. So Brighton were punished for that. But they had some good chances. CK had at least two. And I think the second, one of them was a header, which was really, really close. And then the second one was, the header could have been the second one, actually. I can't quite remember which way around it was, but the second one was such a let-off for Chelsea. They looked pretty sloppy in possession at times. And Brighton did try to kind of make something happen off the back of that. The second goal in particular was quite an unfortunate one to concede, really. The Aggie Beaver-Jones one, we've kind of touched on that already. But Chelsea just do have that air of inevitability about them. And I don't know, we've established, God knows if or when they're going to drop any points. But I think after the Arsenal game, I would have said, oh yeah, Brighton might kind of trip up here. But instead, they seem to have really learnt from that. Their game against Chelsea was very, very different to the performance they put on against Arsenal. So fair play to them for kind of learning from that, but also not just backing down and changing the way they want to play. I feel like Dario Vidicic still played the squad that he wanted to and played the style of football that he wanted to, but they just did it in a way that meant they weren't kind of falling short in other areas, which I think is how they suffered against Arsenal. The goal in stoppage time was quite cruel. I don't know how reflective. I mean, 4-2 isn't a terrible scoreline against Chelsea, but I don't even know if it's reflective of the game, because from having only seen clips and highlights, granted, I do feel like Brighton have a lot about them. I see them making life very difficult for Spurs this weekend. So yeah, those are my thoughts, really. I was impressed by Brighton, not surprised that Chelsea got the job done and won with kind of that 2-goal advantage over Brighton. But I don't think they can be disappointed with the result for sure, but they can't be too disappointed with the performance, I don't think. Maybe a couple of little lapses, bit of frustration defensively, but yeah, that's me.
No, for sure. So I've deliberately done that. Wasn't trying to silence you there, Adam, but I did want to give you the opportunity to talk about Arsenal because of the fact that you did so well at just briefly mentioning them and talking about Villa. I don't want you walking away from today feeling like you weren't able to wax lyrical. So I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about the third and fourth place battle plans at the moment. Arsenal and United locked in on 18 points each. Neither of them a million miles behind Manchester City, just the 4 points off, but already 9 points away from Chelsea. So it feels reasonable to say that the title, barring a Chelsea absolute cataclysmic fall,
we can all dream.
We can, and indeed we will continue to, but it doesn't look like it's coming to either Arsenal or Manchester United. I mean, that's absolutely wonderful. The Arsenal manager, I mean, would you expect him to say, no, we've got no chance, we're just playing for forward? They've kind of got to. Everyone will say until it's mathematically impossible, they'll give it a go. But I agree with you. I think they all know deep down that you are relying on Chelsea dropping it. It's not in their hands. They've just got to keep going as best as they can. So I suppose the really, really important question that we've got, it is a great Elvis song. You're not wrong. Talk to us a little bit about that. United, really good performance, probably their best one of the season, without it being, superb. Just their best so far. Again, great performance from Dominic Janssen, who hasn't been as good as she could be, because of the fact she's a centre back more than a centre midfielder. I'll just answer this question now, seeing as how you so pleasantly reminded me of it. The simple answer to that is no, he isn't. But if you want to hear more of that, do feel free to come on to WFC, where I am, believe it or not quite as professional as I am on here. Although if you've watched the last 69 minutes, that would definitely make you wonder what could happen. But yeah, Adam, let us know. What do you reckon? Arsenal, how do you see that going?
I'll just quickly say on the skin in front, don't worry, mate. I have no confidence in him either, so don't worry. We're mutual on that one, I think. I have my own opinions on him, but that's a Man United question, and I'm not going to go there. I should also say we're level pegging us and Man United. I think we're just ahead of them a goal difference, but I don't think we should discount Brighton because they're only 2 points behind. And no offense, Will, if they get a win against Spurs next weekend, they are right in the mix, and I think that'll be very, very good. It's good to have another cog in the machine of a top three battle. It's a bit sad for us Arsenal fans because obviously every season we go in thinking, right, okay, this is the one where we get the title back. It's been too long, and then about 5 games into the season, it's all over, and it's like, right, okay, it's third place again, as it has been for every single season since like 2014. It's third place battles, and I'm a bit more confident now because we are in the driving seat now, albeit it's a very tight margin. I think we have to give a big shout out to Renee. She's steadied the ship in the manner and so quickly. Very impressively. We've got a really strong run of form. Only team to take points of us was some team that plays at the Lee Sports Village. The name escapes me. But apart from that, it's almost been close to Sonia Bombasta levels of form. I think someone in the comments rightly pointed out about the level of opposition we've played, and to be honest, she's had a bit of a lucky hand because the big hitters Jonas had and Manchester United aside, it's pretty much been the rest. And we've had a very good run. We've obviously got into the next round of Europe, which is fantastic. I think that the challenge is obviously now it's qualified for Europe, and that's not what Arsenal should be aiming for. Every season, Arsenal should be going for the title. But Chelsea are on such a stupendously redonkulous run of form. I mentioned it comparable to only when Arsenal had, recent times when Arsenal had Joe Montemurro in charge in that glorious 18-19 season. That I think they're going to. It's not a matter of if they're going to win the league; it's just when. And I've no doubt they may fumble a few points in the new year as injuries and matches catch up. But I think they've just got enough momentum. Manchester City, I think, again, will run them close, but they always do. And we've seen that happen last few seasons. So it looks like another third place run. And so for me, my focus, and that's why I was very interested on the FA Cup draw, just to sort of bring it back to the beginning. I think it's going to be a cup season for us. I think it's got to be the League Cup. We've won it 2 seasons in a row. You don't often win a trophy 3 times in a row. So it would be quite nice, but that run's going at some point. Just to shout out, the last team to beat us in the League Cup was it was that team that plays at the LSV. The name escapes me. A certain Leslie Russo, the late header at Meadow Park.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that was Leslie. That fun fact. That was that match is what started me down the trajectory.
Oh, no way!
Here on this thing, time and time again, because that was where I met Connor for the very first time with his mate John Foster, and that was how we got into all of this. So I
was in the home end of that one, and it was just after Christmas, freezing cold, and it was very, very painful to walk away thinking, oh well, that's that one out of the way. We are long overdue in FA Cup. We haven't won the FA Cup since 2016, and we've fumbled 2 finals against Chelsea since then. So I think it's FA Cup and it's League Cup. Maybe we'll do well in Europe. And the big game we're looking out for is Bayern Munich, which is going to be at Meadow Park. There's been so much discourse over that. I'm not going to go into that, why that's how happened. But it is at Meadow Park. And that is the game for me, for Renee, because I'm sure you'll know as a Manchester United fan, it's very easy to get wedded to the interim manager and think they are the one actually that could, they are the solution to the problem. They have a really good run of form. They put smiles back on the players' faces. The players say they love playing for the manager. The results look really good. You think, right, let's give them a full-time contract. And then suddenly it stops. The music stops and everyone's going, oh. So it's very tempting to think, give Rene the job full-time. I'm very cautious on this. I'm very much take it step by step. I'm liking that the club have got faith in her. Yeah, rent the season. If it were me, my decision, I would say, here's the keys to the end of the season. See where we are at the end of the season. If there is a world class, I mean, don't settle for like second class. I mean, like, what's the point of getting rid of, say, Rene Sledgers and then bringing in, say, I don't know, Nick Cushing was the name that was doing the circulation round. Thinking, would we not be better off just putting our chips on Rene and letting her grow and be a brilliant manager? That's my view on it. Unless there is an absolutely slam dunk Serena Wiegmann level of like certainty, like Serena Wiegmann coming in to win a home Euros is a guaranteed certainty because she did it with English. So if there's a manager out there that is a slam dunk will win you the WSL with the team you got, go for them. If not, Rene knows the team knows Rene. It's all going very well. If we have a very strong New Year, if we beat Bayern or get a good draw against Bayern, we have a strong run to the end of the season. I think give her the job, and if she wants it, I don't think people would turn it down. My opinion with Jonas is I think the fans liked him because when he got good results, but I don't think they warmed to him as a person. What Rene has that he doesn't, I think fans have warmed to Rene as a person. They really like her, and it helps the teams going well. And I think she'd be a very popular manager to have at the club if she took it full time. But I'm not going to give her a full-time contract just yet. I think there's a bit more of a season we need to see first, and I think we need to test it. New Year, we've got Chelsea just finished. We've got Chelsea away and Manchester City away straight after Christmas. I mean, if you want to test a manager's credentials, there's your test. See where we are in February, and see how the picture looks after that.
There you go. Very, very true. Well, listen, we are slightly over time to a degree, but we will not falter. We will still talk a little bit about Chelsea and Man City because, I mean, Man City, I wouldn't say they're a surprise, but there's been a surprise insofar as there was, you speak about discourse around Jonas Eidevall, but I mean, there's been a lot of discourse as well around Gareth Taylor and everything that's been going on at City, but he's just quietly gone about his business and they've done incredibly well this season. I think it's my fault. I was at a FA Cup game and I was speaking to a friend of mine who worked for Spurs Women, and she said, I said, "Oh, City looks like it's going to be their title, doesn't it?" And they lost that game. So, oh dear, whoops, my bad. And as a United fan, I felt terrible. But it does mean that once again, we're all stuck here, Will, with what looks like it's the WSL. Just feels like Groundhog Day, doesn't it? It's like every year, every morning he wakes up and he thinks it's going to be a different day, and immediately it's not. And it's just where we are now. And everybody, I think, genuinely believes that with Emma Hayes leaving, if there was going to be a chance, Sam Kerr out of the side for a multitude of reasons, and then all of a sudden, 9 wins out of 9, no problem. It's just, if this was a business, you'd pay to have somebody who could leave the squad in such a position that anybody else could. I say anybody else, that sounds a little bit harsh because Sonia's a great manager, but you get my meaning. Somebody else can come in, just pick the game straight up and go, oh, we'll just carry on and do exactly what we were doing before. That is quite something. What do you make of Chelsea and City? Can City catch Chelsea, or are we all just once again having a conversation about who the top three are going to be?
I think, yeah, they almost gave us that kind of tantalizing possibility at the start of the season where you sort of think, oh, maybe they could. And look, this is the worst that Chelsea have played for a while. I mean, the numbers don't necessarily show it, but there is something not quite. Some of the fans aren't quite happy with it, but they've scored 30 goals this season. I think their goal difference is 25. They are so good, and Man City, to their credit, are an excellent team, and they did give us that little bit at the start of the season where you think maybe they could push them all the way. But I think it's a bit too early to say. Oof, it's a 5-point gap. I don't think they can make it up, but oof, it's a 5-point gap. I don't think they can make it up, and that's a shame. You want it to go down to the you want to have this, especially for the newer generation of fans coming in. You want to have that competitivity right to the very end. I mean, I'm not the biggest Chelsea fan by any stretch of the imagination. You really want to see someone push them close, but at the same time, you've got to give Sonia Bonpastor and to a certain extent Emma Hayes for kind of building those strong foundations. You've got to give them credit, because what they're doing they are so good in comparison to everyone else that it's really difficult to see anyone catching them up, be it this year or next year.
No, I think you're right, Beth. Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I agree. I think Chelsea just once again, I suppose this weekend, as we've said before, can not play their best football and still get the 3 points, get the job done. They're clinical. They've got the squad. They've got the manager. And I think City are unbelievable. But for me, just looking at like when they played Chelsea, I thought that game was going to be a hell of a lot closer than it was. I thought Chelsea just looked better. And I know on a different day, maybe it goes a bit differently. But for me, I think City are a really, really strong contender. But this season, I don't know if anyone, I think if anyone is going to catch Chelsea, it would be City. And I don't know if I see that happening. But I think Gareth Taylor has a lot of strengths as a manager, but I can understand the point that he doesn't have anything but an FA Cup to his name. I can understand. I think that's a valid point when you look at his squad. Yeah, not too much to add other than that to what Will said.
Lovely. It's quick fire time, boys and girls. Quick fire time, which you won't enjoy, but you're going to get over it because we're here now. We're going to do it. There's 5 teams. We've mentioned them already as being in the running for the top 3 positions: Chelsea, City, Arsenal, United. I'm going to include Brighton, number 1, because I know that Sean will enjoy that, and number 2, because they're right up there, to be fair, and it would be rude not to. So 5 teams there. Which 2 are going to miss out on the Champions League spots? And I was nice to you both at the beginning, not so much now. Adam, I'm kicking off with you. What do you reckon?
Man United and Brighton are going to miss out.
Oh, I feel like I've been shot. Will?
Man United and Brighton, I'm afraid.
Okay, Beth, I'm having these 2 back on again. Beth?
Oh, I am going to say... I don't want to say the same, but I don't know if I have. I don't know if I have another answer. I'm sorry.
Who are you going to go for, Barry?
Chelsea and City, obviously. To be honest, it's going to be either it's Brighton and or Man United or Arsenal. And I genuinely think it will depend massively on some of these big games that are coming up. The fact that Arsenal and City drew, Arsenal and United drew, the next game between us both could be absolutely massive. And then it just comes down to, for both of us, what happens in these silly little games. Do we have a stupid match where we draw a match where we shouldn't and lose a match where we shouldn't? And then it will simply be down to that. But if we're finishing 4th, then you can't have the League Cup and the FA Cup. You're going to have to give us the FA Cup for that one. So there we go. Will, I'm joking, of course. We will have you back on. The last one, Will, who's going down?
I'm going to have to say Villa. I think I've gone Villa.
Okay, Adam.
Yeah, I said it earlier in the pod. If things stay as they are, same manager, same team, same mentality, it's Villa for me.
Okay, and Beth.
I'm really changing my tune because every week I say Palace are staying up, and I still really want them to, and I still think they can. But this result has made me really worried for them. So potentially Palace, but I think it's going to be very tight.
Absolutely. And we have one final question, which I would like you to try and wrap up in a nice little bow, each of you, within about 45 seconds. But it does feel like it is a big moment to chat about. And Sean was quite right. He said, I know the clock is ticking, but I really can't wait for the 10-minute discussion on Wales. Well, you're going to have to keep waiting, so it won't be 10 minutes. But we will afford it a bit of time because it is right, because they've qualified for Euro 2025. And I suppose really, without going into it, hugely, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. I've just kept repeating it because I've seen a comment and I wanted to answer it. I can't. I've been online now for 3 hours hosting a show, and I think my batteries have run out. But yes, what do you think about the fact that Wales hugely good for international football? That's what I was trying to get at, because it's been amazing watching some of the results that have been going in. There were so many, if you remember them all, like England winning 20-0 against Latvia, ridiculous scorelines like that, which never really make the best of it, I don't think. What do we think about the fact that Wales made it through Scotland so close, so near, yet so far? And I know it's very domestic heavy, but good to see that a lot of these international nations are improving, and that we're seeing a little bit more competition within the internationals. So we'll go around. Will, Adam, Beth.
I mean, I'm not even Welsh, and I'm over the moon for them. I think it's a fantastic result. I really do. Almost following in the footsteps of the men's. It feels like they run the risk of being over reliant on Jess Fishlock. I think it's always the case with a country like that, with such a kind of talismanic player. But I think next year is going to be massive for them. I'm really, really excited to see how they do. I don't have massively high expectations, but we didn't when the men's team went into the 2016 Euros, and look where they ended up. So I think there's positive things there.
So absolutely. I actually watched this game, the Ireland game. I was really impressed by Wales. They showed real grit, real courage, but I was very disappointed by Ireland. I think the moment got to them. I think a lot of players lost their heads and composure, and I thought Wales were absolutely brilliant. Really chuffed for Jess Fishlock, one of the most underrated, undercovered players. If she played in the WSL, she'd be a star. If she played for England, she'd be starting every game. But this is going to be her moment. A career, the credits are winding down her career, I think we can probably say. And this is going to hopefully give her a big send-off. She deserves this opportunity. Scotland, that's another podcast I'd like to talk about, but I'm not surprised that they've fallen short once again. As an Arsenal fan, I know their manager very well, and I don't know why they went for him, but they also went for Shelley Kerr, so what do I know? Congratulations to Wales. I like what we all said about Euro 2016. Can't wait to see them at Euros. I hope they give it a good go. And I'm looking forward to the draw next week and seeing who they get. I'm just hoping they don't get England. I'm a Hope Nations fan. I want to see them separate groups and go their own separate journey, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, Scotland not qualifying is dire times. Really disappointing for Ireland, but just fantastic. Fantastic news for Wales, and I'm really, really excited for them. I'm hosting next Monday, and we're going to have an episode kind of dedicated to the draw, because that will have pretty much just happened when we go live. So hopefully everyone can look forward to that. I'm sure there'll be a lot for us to discuss whatever way the draw goes, but yeah, really excited to see how Wales get on. I think they deserve to be progressing. And yeah, it's really exciting. It's really good for international football. And yeah, just can't wait to kind of see what's next. And also, just touching back on Manchester City quickly, sorry, rewinding. I stand corrected. I think I said Gareth Taylor had won an FA Cup. No, he didn't. He won a Conti Cup. Just to clarify that. But yeah, really looking forward to the Euros, really looking forward to lots more international football and talking all about it next Monday. So make sure you tune in.
Well, there you go. Listen, I completely agree with what you said there. I'm just going to throw this one out there. League Cup barrier, it's called Conti Cup. Reject modernity and call it what everyone else calls it. And you know what? There's part of me that would do that. I genuinely would. But I ask you this. Do you still call on the men's side the Coca-Cola Cup, the Rumbelows Cup, No, of course you don't. That's because it's a sponsor. And if it wasn't for the fact that the Conti part stands for Continental, then I think I would have done. But as I am not here for the sponsors, it's going to be the League Cup until such time as Conti pays me the royalties for continually.
I'll just say it will always be the WSL Cup to me, but that's just my history nerd face, nerd hat on.
Cup, so.
There's been a few. So there we go. And yes, indeed, Michael, I call it something else, but it is a family show, so let's leave it at that. And on this one, Sean, yeah, maybe. I don't know. It will depend whether or not it is Connor in the hot seat, which it very much could be. But if he's still not with us, then it might be Beth, in which case she might have given her idea, and she very well might do it. So there we go. Congratulations if you've made it through for this 90-minute spectacular. Some would say it's more interesting than some football that's been on the TV. Not me, but there's plenty of people that would. I want to say a big thank you to both Will and Adam, especially for joining us and making what I believe was your debut. It was your debut, wasn't it? Here today. Yep, lovely, good. So lovely to have you both. Will, should people have gone, do you know what, that Will speaks such good sense. I've really enjoyed listening to him. Where can people find more from you?
More from me, mostly on the Sports Gazette. I'm enjoy writing there, not just about football. There's quite a lot about cycling on there as well. If anyone wants to really nerd out with me about bikes, that's up to them. But yeah, mostly on the Sports Gazette. Maybe some other places, hopefully in the future.
Excellent. I've heard your stuff about cycling is really good. So that's brilliant. I can't help myself. It's that time of night. Adam, same for you. If people are sitting there going, wow, what a legend, where can they find you?
Well, if they're thinking that, I'm flabbergasted and honoured, quite frankly. But if that is true, you can follow my ramblings and nonsense on Twitter and Instagram at Adam_Salter4, where I'm always writing and tweeting about Arsenal women and women's football and rambles. But I'm doing more of that now on Blue Sky, which is just Adam Salter4. And yes, if you want to hear me talking nonsense, you can do that on the Vic Hager's Wonderland podcast. And if you want to read my nonsense, it's on the halfway line, and more nonsense to follow, which I'm very proud to say. So keep your eyes open and do give me a follow.
Absolutely love a bit of nonsense. Nonsense is great. So that's all good. And Beth, of course, thank you so much. An extra special thank you to you, not for just coming on the show, but for indeed making sure there was a show all nicely sorted by getting everything set up for us. Very much appreciated. If people would like to hear more from your wonderful self, whereabouts would people do that?
No, always lovely. Thanks for having me as always. And most of my work on the Halfway Line, also the Sports Gazette, and you can find me on Twitter at Beth R. McCowan, also on Blue Sky, just Beth McCowan, kind of in that weird transition at the moment where I'm kind of using both. So I feel like I need to pick one.
Absolutely that. And of course, the weekly reminder on that one, that if you do indeed want to find any of these people on the halfway line, that will be on the internet. Do not go to your local ground and just wait at the halfway line. You will be disappointed. A bit like me when I realised I hadn't started the show, but I'm going to make sure I end it properly. So a big thank you if you've joined us for the FA Cup and all of that information. We rewind it. It's been great. Really good to talk about it. It's going to be some superb matches. We've looked through WSL. Been superb. Can't wait to see you again next time. For me, I'm out of here. For these lot, goodbye. Thank you and have a wonderful week. And join us for Lower League Lingo on Wednesday. All about the FA Cup again. Can't wait. See you later.